Wow, look at this. Is there no new graphics? Maddie, what you been doing in your spare time? It's
Wow.
Ethan Skolnick here for Before Floor, extension of 5 on the floor here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We got Jonathan, we got Greg, we got Brady. We don't have Ricky today, so somebody will have to take his role. We'll draw lots. I know it's not going to be Greg. All right, so let's get through this first. First, sponsored as always by Biscayne Bay Brewing. If you're heading down to the game, first put your phone down. That's not safe. But once you get off, take a look at Biscayne Bay Brewing. They have a stand right there at 120, right outside like 123, 124 at the arena. Also, you can get it at Marlins Park or whatever it is they're calling that stadium. And you can get it at your local Whole Foods, your local Publix, and just about everybody else in South Florida. But check it out at BiscayneBayBrewing.com. Also sponsored by our friend Lynette, InsuranceByLynette.com. Lynette, a frequent commenter here. Aggressive Insurance Agency, 954-581-8800. That's 954-581-8800. If you got a bad driving record, she's the person to go to, but she also sells all kinds of other insurance, including life insurance, renter's insurance, etc. So check it out. But, again, driving. Make sure that you check her out and give her a call, 954-581-8800. Ask for her by name and mention 5 reasons. All right, let's get to it. The Heat have a rematch with the Spurs. Beat them pretty handily about 8 days ago, I believe it was. But we saw them also beat Chicago, lose the next game against them. I can give you a little bit of an update about this. I know Brady can as well. Kendrick Nunn is playing. Tyler Hero is not playing. Andre Iguodala, Brady?
Yeah, he's playing.
Okay, Andre Iguodala is playing. Goran Dragic?
He's playing as well. The only other one is Duncan Robinson, who's still questionable, but he's likely to play. And then Tyler Hero's out, which – he mentioned that he had an MRI in the past, and there's no structural damage. And then just the normal, it's day-to-day.
And Udonis Haslem playing, not playing?
Definitely not playing.
Okay. All right. Let's go to Greg here. Don't really know what to say about the other night. And, I was looking today at net ratings on the team. I tweeted some of this stuff out, and some things are becoming pretty clear, okay? Dwayne Dedman has like a Wilt Chamberlain net rating, but let's throw this out because it's a 7-game sample size. Jimmy Butler is plus 4.5 basically per 100 possessions. Duncan Robinson is plus 2.7. Kelly Olynyk prior to his trade was plus 2.7. Goran Dragic is a slight plus, very slight. Kendrick Nunn is a slight negative. And then you drop down the list. Iguodala's plus minus is not good. And again, this is pretty large. I mean, we're a pretty significant sample size at this point. But then before you get to the two-way guys who shouldn't have had to play this much this season, and then Okpala and Precious, who've pretty much been disasters on the court, there's Tyler Hero at roughly minus 5 for the season. The worst by far of all the primary rotation players. I'll ask this. Is it really a bad thing he's not playing tonight?
Probably not. I mean, I want to see him at full strength, and I can't shake the feeling that there's something that we don't know about that maybe is a little bit lingering. I mean, he's out for the foot, and he's playing, sparingly here and there. So I think that it's something that they probably I may lean in the direction of shutting him down, even if he's going to look as bad as he has recently. But the trainers know better than I. So I don't think that that's out of the question. And where I initially was so steadfast saying that Hero would not fall out of the rotation when Oladipo is back. If Hero is hampered by an injury, all that goes out the window.
All right. Is this me or is this Greg that's lagging? It might be me. I'm not sure. Probably me. Jonathan, I did hear everything you said, though. Hopefully everybody else did. Jonathan, go to you on this. Kendrick Nunn back in the starting lineup. A little bit of normalcy here. They can at least we may not see as much of Strus and Vincent at this stage. We know Kendrick. I mean, he just goes in. He just tries to score. I mean, that's pretty much what he does. He's done it very efficiently. But I want to get to the Duncan Robinson thing. I mean, if he doesn't play, and we don't know for sure yet, they have shown a complete inability to play without him, particularly since the trade deadline. Somebody posted the number that their offensive rating is 118 with him on the floor since the trade deadline, and it's 98 with him off the floor. I mean, I don't know exactly when it is that he turned into Steph Curry, but it seems to have happened. I mean, if he doesn't play tonight, how do they even compensate for that?
I mean, you just have to hope that everybody else is hitting shots, because when you have two main stars in Bam and Jimmy that primarily don't shoot threes, it's hard for them to create their own offense when they don't have that accessory guy like Duncan Robinson. And although he's not a Bradley Beal-esque player, he has that type of gravity and is able to pull players away from those guys, making those guys' jobs easier. So I think if we don't have Duncan, it's going to have to come a little bit from Kendrick, right? If he's going to come in, come back off an injury. He's been playing recently really well. He's been shooting well off catch and shoot. So I think he can kind of fill a little bit of that scoring hole, maybe a little bit of pick and roll creation with Bam. But hopefully maybe like a Max Strus, a guy that comes in, he's a microwave guy. He comes in and usually the first time he touches the ball, he shoots it and hopefully it goes in. So it's going to have to be a team effort to try to replace Duncan, because nobody has that gravity that he has.
Brady, we take a look at, again, the loss the other night, which was dispiriting. Jimmy's body language at this point is, pretty clearly frustration. What exactly is there something Jimmy can do at this stage other than put up the numbers he's putting up to actually lift his teammates? Because I feel like he's tried pretty much every motivational method possible and nothing's taken at this point.
Yeah, I just don't think it's on Jimmy at this point. Like, I think it's on the other players. He's done his part. Like, even looking back in the bubble run, his ultimate goal, even when he was going off in the finals, was to get other guys involved, was to get Tyler Hero involved, Duncan Robinson involved. He's done that this year. And now it's just on them. Now it's time for, when Tyler Hero is healthy, to step up on his own. Kendrick Nunn has stepped up on his own. And then I think that's why the growing confidence in him has, surged in that area, because he's been showing it. He's been showing that he can, as Jonathan was mentioning, the catch and shoot area has been showing and things like that. And now, Jimmy's even putting performances on against teams like Chicago and Minnesota, where he's taking over the reins and scoring the basketball, and they're still ending up in losses. So now, it is going to end up in other areas, of other players. Bam even stepped up last game and they still couldn't get a win. And the other thing I do want to mention, we're talking about Duncan Robinson. At one point earlier this season, or even last year, we talked about Duncan Robinson, not being on the floor at end of games. I just don't see a way that Duncan Robinson doesn't close games, moving forward. Just looking at the last game, late game execution, the numbers have shown they're really bad offensively late in games. I pointed to the one possession where Goran's running a pick and roll, Bam, and Jimmy's the one in the corner. It creates no space. And that's where Duncan Robinson comes into play, that the gravity is not an overstatement when we're talking about the things he does for this team and the screening he does for this team, that I just don't see a way that he can, not be on the floor at end of games. And, obviously he has to try to prepare himself to stay on the floor, with the foul calls and, because that's been an issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, they have to lean offense, right? I mean, right, Greg? I mean, this whole thing about leaning defense, but again, I'm looking at, I should have mentioned Ariza is a +2. He's a +2.5. Okay. But this idea of, like, that we were talking about, we're going to play these lockdown lineups at the end and Iguodala is going to be on the floor. And I understand some of what he brings, but they haven't been good consistently with Iguodala on the floor this season. I mean, there's one game they are, one game they are. It's getting harder to justify, like, I feel like they need to go with upside plays and everything. Like, I just throw it to the wind, because this season is starting to feel to me, and I tweeted this today, it feels in some ways like 2000, 2001, and then you got the Oladipo versus Zoe thing. It feels a little bit like 17, 18, like you're trying to sustain with, like, some players that exceeded expectations, and they don't exceed expectations the next year, the 30-11 run that didn't take. But it really feels to me like the 06, 07 team, except this team didn't win a title. It feels like a team that's sort of just tired. They just want the season to end. And as you remember, Greg, Pat Riley clapped that team off the floor, like, almost derisively at the end of it. And Spo's not going to do that, but this is starting to feel like 06, 07 to me.
Well, I think that's going to bring a level of panic to Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
I think that brings a level of panic to the fan base that's not fair, Ethan. So I don't think we should do that. That was an awful season, and let's never do, like, I don't think it's anywhere near that. But I do think I have a theory, and that is that Jimmy really wanted Kyle Lowry at the deadline, like, a lot. And I think that part of what has kind of let the air out of this team is not having that trade happen when I think a lot of people were operating as if it was going to take place. And that's speculation on my part, but I just, as I trace back and try to find, like, where the hell this kind of just fell flat, that's something that I think is playing into it. And we lost Ethan.
There he
I'm
is.
coming back. There we go. Sorry, I switched my wireless. You said something about the level of panic the fan base is not fair, and then I lost you.
Yeah, well, because you're gonna make them panic if you think it's gonna be a season that ends like 06-07 did. But I was saying that I think when Jimmy didn't get Lowry at the deadline, I think that took some of the wind out of this season. Like it took some of the air out of what they expected to get Kyle Lowry, and when it didn't happen, I feel like I can't quantify it, but I think it's a factor.
You know, I just watched Kyle Lowry. The NBA TV reran the Nets Raptors game from yesterday. He's not the same. I mean, I don't know if it's situational. I know the numbers are similar. I don't know. He's not. I feel like we've gotten hung up on Kyle Lowry. I understand because it's a Jimmy thing, but like, is Kyle Lowry going to solve all these problems?
I don't know that it's the best move either. In full disclosure.
I feel it feels like desperate at this point because you struck out on everybody else in 2021 and you had to play for him. I mean, Jonathan, they need a true point guard. I think we all kind of acknowledge that. I don't know if they need a 35-year-old true point guard at this stage. I mean, we're phasing out a 35-year-old six man who was a point guard.
I mean, there's just not one thing that's wrong with this team, right? There's many things that went wrong with this team this year. The first thing is the people that we expected to take that leap didn't take that leap, right? We expected Hero to make that leap first. I will give Duncan a little bit of credit because he's made that leap throughout the season, and I feel like he's progressed during the season. Same thing with Kendrick Nunn, but we're not getting the leap that we expect from these guys to turn to maybe like a hero, like almost an all-star, touching that thing and being consistent. Secondly, we don't have the bench that we had last year. Last year, we had a really, really strong bench, one of the best benches in the league, and now that Goran's coming off the injury, he's not playing like before. Our bench is one of the crutches of the team. It's absolute garbage when we go to the bench and we have to rely on this thing. And you got to add a little bit of the health issues as well. Guys haven't been able to stay healthy. We traded for Oladipo. We've got, 3 games out of him? So it's not just one thing that happened to this team this year. It's so many different things. It's like, one thing after another, and it sucks, right? But it's part of the game, and it's kind of what happened. And I don't know if we could have done anything differently to avoid what happened this year. I mean, if it's maybe a mental thing, it's a mental thing. But so many things went wrong. You just can't blame it on the Kyle Lowry move or just one thing. It's everything added together.
No, that's true. And you mentioned, I mean, you go down the list, the plus minuses, like I said, and it's not only that you have the Vincents and the Struces and the Akpalas and the Achuas who have these god-awful, minuses per 100 possessions, but it's also how many minutes they've all had to play. Like, it's not like other teams where, like, those guys, okay, you're bad when they're on the floor. And look, Harkless was the same, okay? You're bad when they were on the floor. And by the way, Bielitsa is the same, okay, which is why he stopped playing. He's like minus 12 per 100 possessions, okay? So it's like you're talking about all these guys. You haven't gotten upside performance from any of them, and they've all had to play too much. I mean, really the only guys, like you mentioned, Duncan maintained that level, and Kendrick Nunn worked his way back to basically being a flat player, whereas early in the season, he was a disaster, right? I mean, so it's too many of these guys are playing, and they're just not capable of playing at this level right now. It's just pretty damn simple. There's no depth.
It's clear that Duncan's about to get paid.
Yep.
Well, right, because he's the one, right? But I mean, I know we said that everybody's gonna say, well, you said don't trade the depth. Okay, like in a COVID season, I didn't think the depth was gonna be this bad. Okay, I thought one of them would look good. Like
it wasn't an unreasonable thought.
Right, but I mean, none of them are giving me anything. I mean, I watched this Nets game, and Mike James, okay, has been out of the NBA for 4 years. Not the Mike James who played with the Heat, but the other Mike James, who was in Phoenix. Remember, they cut him loose. He had that good run like 4 years ago. He stepped in to that Brooklyn group and basically took over the fourth quarter while he was on the court with Durant and Kyrie at times, okay? I mean, the Heat haven't gotten that kind of performance from any of these guys this year. Like, literally, that was better than I've seen except like one Strus game and one Vincent game, Brady. I mean, like, we talk about player development. The player development this year has not been that good.
Yeah, we're talking about depth, and we're talking about guys filling in. They don't have any middle ground, it feels like. We're talking about the Iguodalas, we're talking about the Goran Dragic's, and then you go to the other side of the spectrum, and you're looking at Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, and KZ Okpala, who could be in a G League right now. So it's like, I don't think they have any they just don't have that middle ground. And I think, honestly, Tyler Hero's become the scapegoat, even though a great Tyler Hero year does not, fix all of their problems. Like if Tyler Hero made a slight elevation from last year. I just don't see that being the ultimate fix for this team. So I just think it's just overall, as you mentioned, the construction of the bench unit, that's just one or the other, and they have to kind of choose and pray for a Strus to knock down 5 threes.
Did they get? And before we close here, we'll go to picks. Greg, did they get caught up a little bit in sort of their own hype? And what I mean is, over the past few years, they've developed a Duncan. They plucked a Nunn, and they got something significant out of him, right? And it's almost like, okay, we can do this with pretty much anybody, right? Like, we've said that, okay? That's why we didn't like the paying the James Johnsons and the Tyler Johnsons, because we're like, they could do this with just about anybody. And the reality is, Max Strus and Gabe Vincent and Precious and KZ, at least this year, have proven you can't.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I think that even if you look back historically, they've had a lot of players that didn't work out. I mean, like, for as much as everyone wants to romanticize the Mark Strickland years, he didn't become a starting power forward, and there was a time where they were grooming him. But yeah, cool dude for sure.
Yeah.
So they don't all work out, and that doesn't mean that that your developmental program is going backwards. But you're right, like, the pipeline is not as full as it once appeared to be. And at this point, we'll find out how much they will bet on it when they either pay or don't pay Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson, and those guys. You know what I mean? Or if they hold on to this whole core, which I don't suspect is the case.
No. And you mentioned not just those guys. If they decide to keep a Dedmon and Ariza, it also shows you that they don't feel like they've got a big and a wing in the pipeline.
Correct.
Who can fill those holes. And to a certain degree, if you keep Dedmon and Ariza, you're basically saying that Akpala and Precious are not ready to contribute in any significant way anytime soon, because if they were, you wouldn't keep those two guys. And I think they're going to keep both of them. All right, let's get to picks. I have a terrible feeling about tonight. I don't like it at all. I mean, the Spurs are still in the mix. Pop still gets those memories in this building. I don't know. I don't feel good about it. I'm sorry. Brady?
The one thing I will say is that this matchup basically allows Jimmy and Bam to step up. Like, it really does. Even looking at last game, Jimmy and Bam did step up. Against this drop coverage, they basically have the mid-range jumper all night. And Jimmy coming off that game where the mid-range jumper was falling, Bam can take advantage of it. Kendrick Nunn returning to the lineup where he's known to just attack those spots. I think the offense could actually have a bounce-back game, in this performance. So I do think they, could end up getting a win. I just don't think it'll be as known as the first time around when they won by 20.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I try to do what Greg did and follow his lead since I came on the show and be positive every single time and pick a Heat win. Right? I tried to follow the culture, Greg. I really did. But, man, it's just so hard to believe in this team. If I look at it objectively and I take out all the emotion, I really just have a hard time seeing us win tonight. I feel like the Spurs do one of those things where 6 or 7 guys score in double figures and we just can't guard anybody, and then they end up beating us. So I'm going to do it for Ricky today. I'm going to take a Heat loss.
And I'll say that comment that came in, the bottom is about to fall out. It kind of feels like that right now, right? That from John Richards. It feels like
this is the type of team that will do that to you, that they'll break your spirit with ball movement and like weird guys that you don't know and expect hitting threes and that kind of stuff. And they owe us one. So like, I know that that's kind of also something you can't measure, but I think that they'll think about that, and then they're in their own race. So I am not confidently, but still taking the Heat. They've won 4 of their last 5 matchups against San Antonio.
All right. He's still got a little bit of guts, but they're getting harder to find. All right.
This is true.
Follow our sponsors. Aggressive Insurance. That's our friend Insurance by Lynette.com. Also Biscayne Bay Brewing. Also tomorrow, the big NFL draft show starts at 7:30. We've got a cast of 12 that are going to be on that program. I'll be on the first hour, but then we'll be mixing in some others. So the cast of 3 yards per carry, also of Extra Yard and 5 Reasons Fins will all be there. Should be a great show on Thursday. Whatever the Dolphins do, people will be pissed off.
Draft Smith.
They go with it. So draft, Devontae.
Pitts.
I think they traded out of the Pitts spot. Anyway, for Brady, for Jonathan, Manny, I don't know what the hell Manny's doing. For Brady, for Jonathan, and for Greg, have a good night. Hopefully we're wrong.
I think that was a Pitts UF thing for Manny, if I'm right.
It's become a case asking so much for Jimmy through 3 periods that he just sort of needed someone else there at the end, the way he pushed himself early?
Yeah, I mean, look, nobody's going to feel sorry for us. Nobody cares, what any particular team is going through, and everybody's going through something. And had guys out tonight, and so it's a heavier workload for Jimmy and Bam, for sure. And I thought we really competed. We weren't able to get some key stops at key moments, on a rough, shooting night. But I thought, these are the kind of wins that could be gratifying if you find a way, to get over the top. But we just could not string together enough stops in a row.
Was there anything particular on the offensive end you thought was lacking, or was it just that the 3-point shots weren't falling?
I'll have to look. There certainly were a lot of those threes that looked like they were good, clean looks. And sometimes that's, you're just not going to, catch fire. Duncan, had some great looks, but, he wasn't even going to go out there, at the beginning. He was throwing up before the game. But again, these are those kind of games that you just have to really grind. We were able to get up, 7-8 points, and just weren't able to get those stops.
And then just Nemanja coming back into the rotation for the first time in a while. What was the thinking there? Thank you.
We're down, guys. He's kept himself ready. He's a weapon, for sure. You can see some of the offensive skill set that he brings. He's not just a 3-1 shooter. He can put the ball on the floor. I thought that dive that he had on the trap was a great momentum shifting play. So we can build on that.
Thank you.
And next, we'll go to Tim Reynolds.
Eric, you sort of answered my question about Duncan. How touch and go was it as far as his availability?
I don't know. Once he was out there, he said he was fine, and we rolled with it.
And, you've got, I think it's 10 left, 9, something like that. I don't know how many, but you often talk about competition. You often talk about not running from these moments. How much is that going to be the message? How much was that already?
Look, there's going to be high emotion with the remaining games, and that's not exclusive to the Miami Heat. That's going to be all those teams in the Eastern Conference that are grouped up where we are. And on any given night, the storylines are going to sway dramatically one way or another based on a win or loss. We have to stay the course, handle our business, and just focus on the Spurs on Wednesday.
Thanks, Eric.
Next, we'll go to Cooper Moorhead.
Spo, 18 turnovers for Chicago, and on paper in a lot of these games lately, there's the deflection numbers have been there, the turnovers, the steals, the points off turnovers. But over the course of the game, the other team seems to be getting a little bit better offensively as the game goes on, which then, has adversely affected your own offense. Is there any theme to why there's been some?
Depends, Coop, right? I mean, there's that stretch of games where we're doing incredible in the second half. So it's a matter of, consistency and putting together 48 minutes. Again, I thought our activity level was really high tonight. And, there were just some key moments where we really needed to get, a stop wherever that momentum was in that time of the game, and we weren't able to get them.
Thank you.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through a bunch of playoff races in your career. What is it like when you come down? Now you have 10 games remaining. Every game has incredible meaning. What's this time of the year like, and what's it like to try to get your maximum focus after a couple of missteps like Atlanta and then tonight?
Well, obviously we know every game counts right now, especially with this play-in situation. The losses that we have had over these last couple games, they are what they are. We didn't play our best ball, but we can't worry about what's happened in the past. We have to focus on these last 10 and play them like our our playoff lives depended on them, because they do. The seeding is important, so whatever we do, we have to do it knowing that we can be in a playing situation, or we can be seated and set and ready to go.
You guys had been very good in clutch situations for a while. It's especially it seemed like it was going well in that direction. Is there anything tonight in the fourth quarter? Was it just fatigue of having to rely on so many of your key guys with so many guys out? What happened in a fourth quarter like this tonight?
And they out rebounded us a lot. It's never just one quarter that a team beats you. Usually it's throughout the whole game. And tonight, they beat us up on the glass. We turned the ball over a lot. We didn't play the way that we played last time against them.
Thank you.
All right, next we go to Cooper Moorhead.
Trevor, not in every game, but a lot of games lately, you guys have gotten off to a really good defensive start. The deflections are all there, steals, you guys are getting out in transition. And then in some of these games, there's pockets where the other team seems to adjust. And is it just the other team adjusting and cleaning up their ball movement, or is there defensive slippage as the game goes on? Is it one or the other?
I just think it's a combination of both. When you give a team a steady diet of something, these are professional players with IQs. They make adjustments, they figure things out. And playing in a situation as such, we just played them Monday, what is today? Whatever today. We just played them Saturday. So they were pretty prepared for what we do. They had an idea of what we were going to do and made adjustments.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, Trevor, that's it. Thank you.
All right.
There. I mean, obviously there were some unique lineups with so many guys out, and you were forced to push through with 31 just in the first three quarters. What was that like? And did you find at the end that maybe just the energy overall from the team might have been lacking?
No, not really. It's the thing we guarded in the end. Honestly, we didn't guard the entire game. We just outscored them for a little bit, and then in the end, we weren't able to outscore them. That's we've been all year long, honestly.
What's it like now with 10 games to go, with this whole new play-in thing added to the format in the postseason? I mean, what do you think these last 10 are going to be like, and how much additional pressure have you put on yourselves?
I don't know. I can't tell you what team is going to show up. I hope whichever team shows up wins, though. I can tell you that. But, we'll go in, we'll check everything out and try to be better. Go out there, play with a lot more effort, get some rebounds. So we got out-rebounded terribly tonight, and guard somebody. That's what we need to do these last 10. I'm hoping, I know that we can make that happen, though.
How confounding is it to go 62 games and still not know what team is going to show up? Thank you.
I mean, it's confusing, yes, but there's still time. That's the best part about it. Better late than never. Hopefully we just start playing basketball at the right time. That's what we're going to say. That's what we're going to use.
Next, we go to Brendan Tobin.
Jimmy, kind of piggybacking off of that, for you personally, have you done anything differently as the season's gone on and you feel like the results have kind of been the same to change things up as far as either picking teammates up or your process or anything to kind of get things on a more consistent track?
I play basketball the same way. I don't really cuss people out like that. I bring the energy to the game. I guard. I play basketball the exact same way at the beginning of the year, halfway through, and now at the end. But I just think we have to be better as a whole. It's not on me. It's not on Bam. It's not on Duncan. Collectively, we have to do better on both ends. So we got 10 games to collectively be better.
All right, next we'll go to Cooper Moorhead.
Jimmy, there's been a handful of games in the past few weeks where in the first quarter, you guys are getting a ton of deflections, getting steals, getting out in transition off those turnovers. And then it doesn't always seem like those deflections, that activity is there in the fourth quarter for whatever reason. Is that just pure slippage, or is there some other kind of adjustment going on from the other teams?
I don't know. To tell the truth, I never even noticed it, never looked at it like that. Deflections or no deflections, we weren't getting any stops. So if we deflected the ball, they probably got it back and then probably ended up scoring it. If we didn't deflect the ball, they still probably ended up scoring it. So I don't know, first, second, third, fourth, we weren't getting stops, deflections or no deflections.
All right, Jimmy, that's it. Thank you.
10 games to go. Is there a definitive sense of what you are as a team? Jimmy just said he didn't think so, but there's still time to get it right. I mean, what's this unevenness been like to go through? And do you think through the first 62 games, you've sort of developed who you are?
I feel like we're not done developing. So, like I always say, man, I feel like we got another level to get to. We haven't tapped in, and we need to get to that level fast before the season goes south.
This is sort of a setup unlike anything before in your career or anyone else's with the play-in tournament. How much attention do you pay to that? And do you guys sort of appreciate the stakes if you get into that 1 or 2 losses and you don't even get to the playoffs if you're not a top 6 seed? Is that something you've looked at? And is that something that's concerning?
Everybody's got mixed feelings about it. So you got the people that's like, yo, we should just 7, 8, just stay like it is. And then you got some people like, we like the playing game because it keeps it more competitive. I'm with either or. I don't really care. But to my point, I feel like we should tap into that next level so we don't have to do the playing tournament or the playing game.
Thank you.
Next, we go to Cooper Moorhead.
You still on mute?
Yeah, thanks. Bam, for the most part this season, the fourth quarter defense has been very strong, but over the past handful of weeks, it seems like it hasn't quite been there in the fourth quarter as much as it is in the first, even when you're forcing a lot of turnovers. Is there any reason to that you can put your finger on, that the defense has experienced some slippage down the stretch?
I ain't got the answer for that one. It just goes back to the basics, man. You got to guard your yard, and then you got to help one another. And bottom line on defense to make multiple efforts. So I feel like it's boiled down to that, making multiple efforts.
Gotcha.
All right, that's it. Thank you, Bam.
Black Lives Matter, people.